help from Ula and Nancy, and most recently, last few months, Teresa, thankfully. And those agendas were pretty simple getting us through July. Not so much lately. So here you can see the agenda that is proposed for today. And we want to make sure you agree with this agenda so that we can use this agenda. If there are things that you think are missing or don't have adequate time, please list those things in the chat. I'll also put my email address in the chat so you can send stuff that we can have for our next meeting. If we spend a huge amount of time trying to revise this agenda, there's no way we'll be done in 80 minutes, which is what we have left. So that's all I really wanted to share. So look at this agenda and make sure you agree with it. And there we are. Magritte, what I'm probably mispronouncing your name. Bonin. I know I get that one right.
No, because it's dry. That's why it's
all right. Can I speak?
Yes.
There you are. Okay. I told already by mail that I do not agree with this agenda because of the position of these long discussions about steering community and planning and so on. I think we should do it later and should start with the necessary things like the reports and like updates, and then we can discuss the other things. Yeah. Thank you.
My hand is up, George.
I said your name, but I was muted. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, the reason that we worked on this agenda, and it was a collective effort that included a diverse group of women, George and I being two women of African descent, Leah, Ula, and Nancy being three women of European descent who worked on this agenda. And Magritte, I'm not sure what your role is in all of this. I think your ID says you're from Germany, maybe. But the agenda was set up in a way that we could have some discussions that might be germane to whether or not we can go forward. So I would like for us to proceed with the agenda as it is, and with the absence of Ula, who was supposed to be providing a number of updates. I think it's fair that that agenda item comes after what I think are some real pressing decisions that we need to make. And of course, the floor is open to other people to speak in this situation, which the side conversation we've been having have been about the inclusion of Black, Indigenous people of color in this process, which is European dominated. And so that is kind of the gist behind the objection that I'm making to what Magritte is saying. Ula is not here. She decided that she had something to do with her grandchildren, so she's not going to be here with us this morning. So the updates that Ula was primarily charged with doing will not be happening by Ula. So Magritte seems to want to make this a debate, George, so I think you should probably recognize her.
Sure, go ahead.
Am I to speak now?
Yes.
Just short. I do not like to discuss if we change or not change. But I would like to know is there a majority to have the agenda like this, or maybe is there a majority to change the tops, the items, because it's a proposal. We have not to discuss about European or African or something like that. It's just a proposal to discuss today, and it needs just agreement with the majority of these people which are now here present. Yeah.
Correct.
So please, I do not like to discuss 40 minutes about steering committee and something different when when I'm not intended to do anything like that. Yeah. So
Right.
let's work constructive. Thank
Okay.
you.
The times that are there are the maximum time, not the minimum time. Things may take less time. Are people in agreement with the agenda as it is? The only suggestion I can think that we could do is changing the order of things. So let me put it back up again. And at this point, we would talk about the meeting that Leah, Ula, Nancy, Teresa, and I had on Saturday first, and then cover anything connected to any planning. There's time in this for questions in our discussion. And then we would jump to the working groups because Ula's not here for the updates. And then we'll try to get the updates as best we can. And then we're going to set the next meeting. So any comments? Anyone think we can't proceed as it is written? We know that the opinion that Margaret has. We don't want to steamroll you, Margaret, but we do have to move forward. And our time for the discussion is gone now. Leah.
Yes, I would suggest that we do the updating right after or before actually the possible steering committee, because it's when Ulla is not here, so that's a thing that is going very fast, and then we might have more time for discussing the steering committee.
Okay, so I'm going to put it back up again. And what you're saying is this section updates to move it up. Most of these are updates that Ula would give, but other people might know them. So is this what you're saying, Leah? This section here, I'm going to highlight it. Is this what you're saying? We move?
Yes, we move up that.
Move up that. All right. Other people agree with that?
Who would be giving the updates? Since
I have some. I have
Leah
some
has some,
information,
okay.
and maybe then I think maybe.
Anyone
So
having a
Leah
strong
is saying,
Go ahead.
Leah is saying that she agrees with Margaret. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time challenging this, George, and the wonderful work you've done putting these agendas together when we meet. So let's go ahead with the updates, and then we can follow the agenda as done if people are in agreement, which will go to the steering committee conversation, and then the unfinished business from last week, which was about the strategic planning effort.
Okay, thanks so much. So, Leah, you say you have some updates. Here's our list of them. Let us know what you can cover.
Yes, and I think Christina has something to add also to this.
Excellent.
But
Hi, Christine.
yes,
Go ahead, Leah, and then we'll get Christine and then Pippa.
Yes.
Leah, Christine,
about
Pippa.
about the letter.
Yes, please.
Support for a new or summit meet. This letter has been, or the letter has been sent to all of you, and Ulla will certainly be very glad if you can make your comments on that, and then start to get signatures. That's one very simple task to do for everybody.
George, could Leah explain what OSCE is? I have no idea what the OSCE summit is for 2025. Could she please explain what that is about?
Well, just a second.
Leah, can you tell us what OSCE is?
Yes, can you just wait a second? I'll try to find from
Just may I start while Leah is seeking in
You know what
Does-
OSCE is? We've got Christine and Pippa and
Yeah. Actually, I'm missing the English translation. Sorry, I'm looking for it.
George, people are writing it in the chat. Is the organization for something or other? George, can you read what people are writing in the chat since Leah can't find it?
Organization for Cooperation and Security in Europe. Sounds like some bullshit. And there's a link. So you can check out
Organization for Security
Cooperation and Security. Yes, ma'am.
in Europe.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the letter that Leah was talking about, and
But
which
it's
people
not-
need to review and
yes,
sign on. Anything you need to add,
but
Leah?
there's also it's also involving Canada and USA. And Lisa, if you have something to add, you can say.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Tamara is on, has her hand up as well to explain from the Canadian point of view, I would
Yes,
imagine.
I see that. We got Christine,
Okay.
Pippa. Teresa's hand was up, but it's down now. So Christine,
No,
Pippa.
we should stick with the topic, George. We should stick with the topic. So if people's hands are raised to talk about the update on the letter of support for the OSCE, you should recognize those hands. Otherwise, what will happen this time is the same thing that happened last time. A lot of different things that were kind of off the agenda topics. But I think Tamara is raising her hand about the OSCE, which we need to understand that because it sounds like it's a strictly European thing. And so why is the letter important? That's the message we need to get.
And Christine did have something that was on this topic. So Christine, I'm trusting Pippa, yours isn't this topic. So Christine and Tamara.
Mine is this topic.
Pardon?
I
Is
think
Christine saying?
OSCE we should discuss in the next session and should get a better preparation, because it's not only the name, it also has a history. And this 25, 50 years, but if I'm right now. And then we really should discuss if we can revoke it. It's combined, this is so-called Helsinki process, which started 50 years ago. And it is now kicked out and changed to more or less a new Cold War. So take it to the agenda for our next meeting. And I think Ulla will prepare something, and maybe I also will be better prepared to discuss about.
Thank you, Christine.
So, and
Tamara?
I want to discuss the preparation for NATO in Washington.
Oh yeah, we've got that on the agenda. We'll get there. Tamara?
Um, hi everyone, Tamara Lawrence with the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace and World Canada. I would just like to say something quickly about the OSCE. So the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe was established by the Helsinki Act in 1975, and it's an architecture that brings in Canada, the United States, all the European countries, and Russia. So it goes from Vancouver to Vladivostok, and it was a way to prevent this kind of conflict that we see in Ukraine. The problem is that over time the OSCE has become NATOfied. I really think that the United States in particular has played a nefarious role in the OSCE to direct the OSCE to support US these NATO objectives. So for instance, every year the OSCE hosts a civil society meeting. The OSCE has a civil society liaison, and that liaison is Mr. Hadjiani, who is a member of the European Parliament for Greece. A member of Parliament for Greece. And they had the civil society meeting in March of this year, and I attended it on behalf of Canada, and I was extremely troubled by the Russophobia, the lack of objectivity and balance and trying to find constructive solutions. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this institution has become NATOfied. The other thing is this July, the OSCE had its parliamentary assembly in Vancouver, Canada, and it came out with a declaration. And I would encourage you to read this declaration. It's about 20 pages. And by reading this declaration, you will see the problem of the OSCE now, the direction that it's going. When Patricia and a few of us were in Vienna for the International Summit for Peace in Ukraine, we went to the OSCE and we met with some of the gender advisors, and we shared with them our concerns about what took place with the summit and what's happening with the OSCE. And they said that the OSCE itself, they recognize, is in a very troubled state, because it's only as strong, like the UN, as its member states, contribution, political contribution, financial contribution, really wanting to make it work. The United States plays such a dominant role that it's preventing the OSCE from working the way that it's intended. So my concern with this letter and with this whole this idea of trying to have an OSCE 25 new summit is we need to recognize that the current state of the OSCE and how it's really become a tool for the US and for NATO. So that I wanted to bring that to your attention, but there's more to say on the OSCE. I appreciate that we don't have too much time right now to talk about it, but I do just want to flag for all of you to all of you have a member of your parliament who is the point person to the OSCE. So in Canada, it's the member of parliament, Hedy Fry. And we have been trying for 3 years to have a meeting with her about this, and she won't meet with us. But all of you have somebody in your parliament who are a liaison to the OSCE, and I would urge you actually to try to have a meeting with them. And I also want to urge you, I will share the contact information for Dr. Hadjiani, who is the OSCE Civil Society Liaison, because I insisted with him and his office that he meet with the Canadian groups before the Vancouver Parliamentary Assembly meeting of the OSCE. I insisted on a meeting. There was about 30 of us, and we gave him an earful. We told him all of the problems with Canada and with how the OSCE is running this war and dealing with this war in Ukraine and all of these other problems. So I will share his contact information in the chat. Try to set up a meeting with him, with your groups, and also I will share the Vancouver Declaration in the chat too. Thanks.
Thanks, Tamara. Pippa.
Yes, everything Tamara said and more. There is a real danger that the OSCE will become militarized. I do not think we should send a letter in support of them.
Okay, excellent and brief. Love that. Let's look at what else is on this update list besides the letter. The declaration. Wow, somebody's loud. Does anyone have or know a quick update on the declaration? I checked yesterday, the signatures are about 994. I don't know anything else. Anyone else know more?
Well, there's 26 different languages, so that is increasing. That we should really get much more signatures.
Yes.
So that's something everybody has to work on.
You got that right. Thanks, Leah. The letter to BRICS. I think Marguerite may have something to say here. Does anyone? I don't see any hands.
Maybe it's old. I do not know. Thank you.
Go ahead. Oh, you said you don't have anything? No one have anything on the letter of BRICS?
No, I haven't.
Go ahead.
If I get it right, you will now discuss the steering group, right?
No, we're doing the updates. And on the updates list, the next thing after the declaration is the letter to BRICS, then the NATO 75th anniversary, and the IPB webinars mobilizing for Washington. This is where we are.
Okay, so I'm sitting on an invitation for a meeting, a huge meeting where everyone is invited at September 30th at 7 p.m. in Germany. And we should start preparing the actions in Washington for the NATO activities in June. And as a program, we have introductions by Anne Wright from the US, Kate Hudson from the UK, and Anu Chenoy from India. And the moderation will be done by Ludo Di Banda. The opening and welcome will be done by me, and afterwards we will have a discussion what do we want to organize actions in Washington, US and worldwide, with an introduction by David Swanson and Rainer Brown, and the moderation will be Medea Benjamin and Ulla Klötzer, and of course discussion, and at the end we will have summary and conclusions moderated by Rainer Brown and David Swanson. And I ask you all, see if you can attend the meeting, and especially to see what the Women United Against NATO will do as own part during all these action plans in Washington. And
George.
Yeah.
Dear George.
Yes.
I think it's important for everyone here to understand who Christine is, who is fighting through her health situation to speak with us. And Christine is one of the top leaders in the international No to NATO, No to War movement. And she has joined us here today. And I think we should really acknowledge that Global Women for Peace United Against NATO is a new group that is really supposed to be clearly a part of the No to NATO, No to War group that Christine leads. internationally. So I think that political message has to come through clear as Christine is urging us to get ourselves together so that we can do what we need to do in Washington next year. And I am so happy to see you, Christine. I heard that you weren't feeling well, but to see that you are here with us today is just making my heart sing. So I am so glad that you're here. But I think everyone who's in the meeting should understand the significance of Christine being here with us today. George, I did not want to let that go by because the whole idea of the updates being less time and going first is not working. The updates are a lot more serious than was thought because that OSCE letter is a problem, as we've heard from Tamara. So the agenda that was put together, I think, was the appropriate agenda. But now we're kind of all over the map, George. So since you're facilitating, I think you have to help us deal with what the priorities are. And Christine being here, let's deal with what Christine would like to talk about in terms of the priorities. And I'm hearing the No to NATO 75th Anniversary Summit may be it. But let's not wear Christine out. Let's let Christine be sure to get across the international No to NATO movement work. Let us respect Christine and her work.
Thank you so much. I hear that we will be getting an invitation for a September 30th meeting that will start at 7 p.m. German time. So 1 p.m. for the East Coast. Thank you very much. Is there anything additional to share on that? You're good? Awesome.
No, it's okay for today.
Okay, good. Thanks.
I will send it out the invitation.
I know that from Pippa, she's working on the newsletter. Ula mentioned something about WhatsApp, but it was not resolved yet. It's in the research situation. So we've got newsletter, WhatsApp. Letter to BRICS was posted in the chat. I didn't know you could put documents in the chat. So everyone can take a look at that. And then I think we've covered this item, which did take 3 minutes.
Well, George, the
yes?
the letter to BRICS is of deep concern to me because it's the oddest thing I've heard coming from someone, that we as a global women for peace united against NATO would be writing to the South African chair of BRICS. What in the world possessed people in Europe to think that was something appropriate to do? And I understand it was some sort of decision at a European meeting to have a European write a letter to BRICS. We have had no discussion about BRICS. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. There are no European countries involved in BRICS. So why would somebody in Europe be writing a letter to the head of BRICS on behalf of this new group? That is a question fundamentally. And I think Margrethe Bonin, I think who's from Germany maybe, is the one who drafted the letter. And I think she should speak to the political basis or organizational basis she felt that she had the right to write such a letter. I want to hear from Bonin out of Germany, I think it is, who thinks that she had the right to create such a letter, and why.
Go ahead, Margrethe.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very surprised about this statement from Teresa, because as far as I know, she also proclaimed to use BRICS for women, in this case of no to NATO. If you have read this declaration of BRICS, you will find a lot of items which fit with that, what the global women for peace like. I do not like to be differed between European and African and like this. If we are women for peace, it's no different if anything is coming from Germany or from Africa. And if you have read this letter, Teresa, you will find that most of the models are from the BRIC declaration itself. I copied nearly all of this letter from the declaration of BRICS, and I copied also from the declaration from the global women. So there is nothing from my own, or nearly nothing from my own inside this letter. Nevertheless, we had a discussion, mainly private, with Ulla and Dragina, not something else, and we just decided to make a draft. And I think in a democracy, it's possible, it should be possible, that drafts are presented in a meeting. And I'm glad that Ulla put this point on the meeting of the agenda, because there is no place for this. But in the meeting, it should be any space to make new ideas and to present them. I think the meeting can decide if we discuss it more, further, or if we stop the discussion. So I would like to know if the meeting is interested in discussing a letter to BRICS or not. If not, I stop. Thank you.
Okay, I see Teresa and Pippa. Teresa?
Well, the point, Margaret, is a political point. I see Europeans nodding their heads that it's okay. But this is a UN decade for people of African descent. And the call is for recognition, justice, and development. There is a reason that the United Nations called for a whole decade for people of African descent to get justice. And for you to write a letter, it is just a lack of consciousness that you would write a letter without consulting with the Africa Working Group. We've been talking about BRICS from the beginning. And are we not part of this global Women for Peace United against NATO? We are Africans who are most impacted by the rising of BRICS. That is why it is important to not pretend that we don't exist and to recognize us. As Africans, Brazil has more Africans than any other country outside of Africa. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, that's what makes up the core of BRICS. It is with the height of arrogance that I think this small group that just got started to go to Brussels would now see itself as some sort of diplomatic power in the world, that you would write a letter from this group to BRICS. That is the political point I'm making, and I'm sorry that it appears to be lost on Margaret. I am so sorry, but it is a serious political point. You have no standing, and we have no standing, even in this group, to be writing a letter to the chairperson of BRICS in South Africa. What would be such a purpose? What are we asking her to do? And what gives us the standing as this little group that is just a part of an international movement saying no to NATO? Why are we writing to BRICS at this point in our development? That is the political point I'm making. I'm sorry if it's lost.
We got Pippa, Margaret, and Ria. And hopefully we can come to a place where we can pause this and move on with our other agenda items. We can take this for another 5 minutes or so. Pippa, Margaret, Ria. You're muted, Pippa.
Apologies. 2 points briefly. The first is I haven't read the letter, so I can't comment. And the
Yeah.
second point is we should stick to the knitting, as it were. We have got this big 75th anniversary of NATO meeting next July. That's not a lot of time to get people on board, understanding our position, and mobilizing for the meeting. So I think we should stick to what we say on the tin. We're against NATO, so let's concentrate on that. BRICS can wait. It's not really for us to get involved in that just now, whilst it's still just finding its feet.
Thanks, Pippa. Also, the Africa Working Group will meet later this month, either on the 21st or 28th, and this will likely be on our agenda. Margaret and Ria.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first, I think everybody is able to write a letter and has no take agreement for this in anybody. That's the first thing. The second thing, as far as I recognized the answers, Teresa hasn't read this letter because she didn't notice that not I am the one who would like to sign the letter. In the signature downside is BRICS. I suggest to look for women which belongs to the BRICS states, and they should sign the letter. And I asked Ulla to put it as European zusätzlich. Okay. I have difficulties to explain now in English because I'm very, very upset. I do not understand the objection. This letter is just to look at, to read, and then to discuss.
Okay.
I do not expect that anybody is discussing the letter today. I tried to get contact to the African group with Mbaza, and she answered by mail today. So I do not, I just have her comment of this, and that was good. So I would like that the African group is discussing this letter, but the objection, because I'm European and BRICS is not European, something like that, I think that is not helpful. Helpful is to look at the BRICS declaration and to find out where we are in common. And BRICS is in common with no to NATO. They're even in common with no sanctions and some things like that. They are opposite to the European and to the US politic. So why not use this new strength to make more global power for peace? There's a lot of hints about peace in this declaration. Please read the declaration from BRICS and then read my letter and then decide or comment. Please do so. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ria, do you still have a comment? And Ernest, I saw you put your hand down. Let me know if you have a comment. Hopefully you'll be done in 2 minutes or less.
Yes, very short. I would suggest to postpone this issue to the next meeting. For me personally, I really want to know more about BRICS, and I very much respect all the comments. And of course, the African section is most important to hear their voice as well. So for me personally, I cannot speak out right now, but I'll do my best to learn more about it. And I hope to be able to read the letter. Maybe it's good, Margaret, to send it again because I probably missed it somehow. Thank you.
It's in the chat, Ria, the letter. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to move on to the discussion or report back from our meeting on Saturday. So we'll hear from Nancy for 3 minutes, Nancy, about your thoughts about Saturday's meeting. Teresa, 3 minutes about your
Oh,
thoughts.
George, I'm very sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, George, but I just want to briefly talk about the newsletter, which I've prepared 2 of the newsletters, but I haven't sent them out because I am a little confused about the mailing lists. And Ulla has kind of said, I trust you, go ahead. So if everybody's happy with that, then I just send out, and that's just some choice pieces about NATO with links and a small comment of context to them. They're not too onerous, but I do not want to load up your inboxes. So I would like to have an indication from this group that it's okay to send out the newsletter for you all.
Anyone have an objection to getting a newsletter? You could always
I thought, George, I thought there was a newsletter committee, not just Pippa. I don't understand. Wasn't there a media committee or something?
There was, leading up to July, there was a media committee, but after that, there was just volunteers. I believe Pippa might be the sole volunteer at this moment. I don't know. Do we want to have a discussion about who's doing the newsletter? No, thank you. Okay, so thanks, Pippa. You can add a line in there that if someone wants to opt out of receiving it, they can email you directly. And I will, as I said earlier, give you the registration list from today, which is everyone's email who's registered today and present here now. Nancy, is this about the newsletter or our meeting on Saturday?
Yes, it's about the newsletter.
Go ahead.
So Pippa, I'd like to ask you, would you like to have this newsletter be on a subscription basis so that you have a subscription list? Would that be helpful?
Well, this question of lists is just not quite straight in my mind. But
Yeah.
I actually think that George's idea is you can opt out. Is
Okay.
probably better, in which case I can probably work to construct a list which is just the people who want to receive it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
So now 3 minutes each for Nancy, Teresa, and Leah, and then myself to give feedback and report on the meeting we had on Saturday. Nancy, I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Yes, so on Saturday we did have a meeting of Ulla, Nancy, Teresa, and George to discuss how do we move forward, particularly in the planning aspects for next July. I think it's very important to consider how various aspects of this in terms of education, mobilization, planning. How do we plan events, or engaging our membership, our group, and the organizations that many of our group belong to in local and national activities, as well as how do we collectively plan for next July, and have my thought is that we need some discussion coming up soon about how are we going to frame global women and our declaration in terms of a general vision and framing of, if we say global women for peace united against NATO, then what are we proposing? What is in our declaration that we can actually pull out and create framing statements and analysis and statements, so that we're really presenting from our declaration that vision that's in the declaration. Already there, as we know from the September 30th meeting, there are plans being discussed. And I think it's essential that the various peace groups within our global group, have an opportunity to discuss, for example, among our regional groups, our working groups, how they might put on different kinds of events. So there's a lot of organizing to do that actually will lift up not only our declaration, but our vision.
You got about 30
I think
seconds.
that will really help I think that will really help in coming together to counteract what is going to be a huge push by NATO when they're in Washington, D.C. We have to recognize how strong NATO, the US government, other NATO governments are going to be in that celebration of 75 years. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa.
Please don't forget that Leah was also there. And in the absence of Ula, I would appreciate Leah going now to express her opinion about the meeting on Saturday, where the 5 of us came together.
My apology, Leah.
I remembered you, Leah. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to refer anything what Ulla said, because I haven't even been prepared for that. Just a few minutes before this meeting, knew that she will not be. Well, yes, we had a 1-hour meeting on Sunday, and some important things came up. For instance, that group, this network of women who was preparing the Brussels and did seminars there has to be more inclusive. And as we have had nearly 300 women, either on the Zoom or in the seminars. So I think we have also to expand the group more, of course, to USA, because the main issue, main goal is Washington. And we have really to think about how to organize it more. And I hope that from the USA and Canada, there will be more groups that will take responsibility for what is happening then in Washington. I do not know if it's best to have a steering committee or how to work, but I wish that all women who are involved in the Global Women for Peace, United Against NATO, could have an own voice, could make maybe own workshops, own seminars, or whatever they are engaged with. And as Nancy told about the working groups, I think it's very good to know their goals.
30 seconds.
And quite soon, before, I mean, the next year comes very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Teresa, and then I'll go.
Well, thank you, George. First of all, I'm representing the Southern Anti-Racism Network in this group. I signed the declaration as the board chair of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, which is celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And the 5 women who met on Saturday, 3 of us are also women members of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, the U.S. section. That's George, Nancy, and I. Leah and Ulla, who were there, are part of Women for Peace Finland. And so it was a small group of us meeting to talk about what this whole group should be doing. So I propose that we report out our conversation in the spirit of democracy and transparency. And I propose the steering committee, which is a basic form of organization for helping large groups or groups make decisions. Because what is happening in this group is that each person comes up with an idea and then they start to push the idea, which is what Margaret is doing in the chat. She continues to push this idea of the letter to BRICS. BRICS, a letter to BRICS, for us to do a letter to BRICS. She doesn't understand it is not about her being German or from Europe. It is that this group, this formation, would have the gall to generate such a letter in this early stage of our development and in the early stage of BRICS. It's just odd to me as a person who's been doing organizing for 57 years. So the idea that this group should be organized in a way that allows for us to make democratic decisions seems something that Ulla spoke out strongly against. I'm sorry she's not here, but she did. So it's just an idea that we would be representing groups with some accountability. In the strategic chart that we reviewed at the meeting on August 31st, there was a list of partners, groups, organizations of women who can bring people and mobilize for DC for July. I'm talking to people in the labor movement, in unions. I'm talking to people in all kinds of organizations to help them to understand why we say no to NATO. That's why the letter from Pippa newsletter will be important so that we can disseminate that. The Southern Anti-Racism Network did a tour of 6 cities from August the 8th through the 15th.
30 seconds.
And one of the messages was no to NATO. So I'm in it for the long haul. But I think we have to be better organized for decisions that need to be made by this group and not just every person do her own thing. That was the purpose of the Saturday meeting. Thank you.
All righty, so my 3 minutes. I was most grateful that we met, even though organizationally we're no more than 3 organizations: Southern Anti-Racism Network, WILF, and Women for Peace, Finland. I saw Ellen, I'll call on you after I'm done in 2.5 minutes. What I'm very grateful for is trying to have some form of container or structure so that we can do work effectively together as a group of global women, but also have accountability and consistency and transparency, a SARN principle, so that we're sharing space in a way that is efficient and effective, so that there is some form for us to be able to say, here are the priorities for the next 3 months, 6 months, 2 weeks, and then bring that to the whole for just a real truly democratic process. So I value that because we discussed that. What that looks like is a steering committee made up of individuals who are part of organizations or communities or collectives who are involved in Global Women United Against NATO, with the ability to say, we have 3 people who are representing our organization. We have 1 vote for our organization if we're voting on things, and we'll show up, we'll get work done. That's all I need to say. And Ellen Mass had her hand up. Anyone else? Go ahead, Ellen.
Yes, this is so important. I mean, one of the reasons I'm in this group, I'm from Boston Wilf, and I'm not representing Boston Wilf. I'm speaking for myself, but I have been prodding with Nancy and Teresa and George about the importance of what we've just done in July in Brussels and in Vilnius. And that this group is still, it sounds like we're still vying for some kind of discussions to make sure that some of this that had just happened is carried over in the US, in Washington in 24. And I don't think, I think we should, I think this group should see itself as the baseline for suggesting and actually taking a lead even in what happens in DC, because you've done it and we've already had so much publicity and responses from different countries in Europe, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Italy, wonderful articles. I think that the US needs to know what some of the pros and cons, things that worked, things that didn't work, and have discussions based on 2023 for 2024. So that's one of the main reasons I'm just speaking, and Nancy knows this, Teresa and George know this, but I wasn't invited for Saturday. Steering committee could work, but I think I'm suggesting that we take into account what just happened as a base for continuing on in the US and getting them to recognize that even though they're already started organizing, and Teresa's doing some terrific touring in getting people involved, that this group should make sure they see everything that's been done here. They read the articles, they know that you've had a very good impact, and be very proud of July 2023. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah, Teresa, we need to move on soon. Go ahead.
Well, that's the point, George. We can't just mechanically keep moving on without resolving questions. That was the whole idea behind having a steering committee that was representative of the many groups and organizations that are part of this. And, WILF US is a part of this, and I'm sure it will be discussed by the national board. The Southern Anti-Racism Network has a board, and we're already discussing this by saying that we will support tours in the Midwest and the Southeast to get people to be in DC on 2024 in July. But what's most important is that we're part of a much larger movement, No to NATO, which Christine is a leader in. And some idea that Global Women for Peace United, which just started in March of this year, is somehow some kind of baseline, Ellen, for where we are in this larger international movement of No to NATO. We're just a small piece. And Southern Anti-Racism Network, my small organization, is a really small piece. But in the United States, there are lots of peace groups, and never have they been able to really come together to work together. That is what's going to be required now. And so how can we as feminist peacemakers help to lead that? Because Anne Wright is a part of this group. She's very highly respected, Veterans for Peace. They will sign on to know the NATO. So that's what we're trying to do, is get a level of organization together that involves, in large part, groups in Canada and the United States with the most likelihood of being able to turn out tens of thousands of people. I'm real clear about the task ahead, Ellen, and what needs to be done. And people who are in Europe, maybe a few will be able to come to the United States next year, maybe. But this will determine what is possible. But I do know in the United States, we must do better. And because the Know the NATO Summit 75th anniversary is in DC, in the United States, the whole idea of a steering committee was proposed so that we could organize better. Simply that.
Thank you.
Simply that.
So that's the
George,
proposal
Leah
for a
has her
steering
hand up.
committee. Yes, I see that. There's the proposal for a steering committee, which we won't make a decision on today because we only have 19 minutes left, but certainly it will be something that we bring up and make a decision about at the beginning of the next meeting. Leah.
Yes, I would actually like hear from all the women who are, or all who are on this meeting now, what they think about the possibility or to have a steering committee. I mean, what ideas, very shortly, what ideas there are.
Okay, I hear you there, Leah. We can hear any updates from any work groups that have met, if you've met, or we can open up the discussion for anyone to respond to this idea of the steering committee. What do people want to do? Raise your hand if you have something to say about the steering committee proposal. If you have something you want to share. Go ahead, Pippa.
Yes, I think it is a good idea to have a steering committee. Otherwise, making decisions will be rather hard if we're talking 20 or 30 people. But I also think it's important for the steering committee to make sure they take the wider group with them. So update us frequently through the medium of these Zoom meetings is good so that we can all be on board with the way the steering committee would like to take us. I like it that we're a flat organization, but I also want us to be in a position to be able to make decisions. Otherwise, there's no point us even existing. And, you know, where there is conflicting ideas, we do need to talk that through, but in a, you know, a grown-up kind of way, obviously. So for me to sum up, I would say, yes, let us have a steering committee, but let us be quite sure the steering committee is taking the whole group with them every step of the way.
Thanks so much, Pippa. Ria.
Yes, I agree with Pippa. Very important to be able to make decisions in time and so on. And of course, we are a group of women with a lot of experience, I think, on decision making, and I'm pro base democratic decision making. So reflecting back to the group is very important, and if there are objections to bigger issues that need to be able to take care of and to look at for more practical things, I think we need to give the authorization to the steering committee to make decisions in that way. But maybe it's good to define these tasks, what the steering committee can decide by themselves without consulting the wider group and what not. That would be advisable, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's a good point. Anyone else? Last call for comments about the proposal for a steering committee. Ellen? Margaret?
Yes, I hope
ahead,
that
Elle.
was not misunderstood. The idea of a baseline is really to say a steering committee could do that because they would be able to explain and to give the impact of what just happened in Brussels and Vilnius, of this group's experience to the other. Hopefully on the US side, they would have a steering committee of some sort, so this could be done. But a steering committee needs to have their counterparts. I hope we continue to give the importance of this small new group, as Teresa keeps emphasizing, to what was achieved and how that can be helpful for 2024. I get because as she said, it was so big, the US peace group movement. There's so many, on so many levels, with so many issues. The NATO issue has never been the most important issue in our peace work. So for us to make that happen, we have to show that what we just did was important. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, the steering committee, great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. I heard you describing an evaluation of Vilnius with lessons learned and whatnot. Margaret?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not I do not like the idea of steering group because I think we are in a network and not NATO. NATO needs a steering group. NATO needs strategic planning. We just are democratic about, and we would like to discuss and to develop. And development is not to steer. Development has to be open for different meanings and different suggestions. And the Democratic Party later will steer themselves by making decisions in a general assembly like the UN. We do not need any secretary to make it. As I told you in a mail, I'm glad that you are managing the meetings. You make the technique and you make the agenda you said about our meeting members. But there is no need for anybody to create before something what is not, but what is in the interest of a small group. It's not the main interest. You make in the agenda, you make a suggestion, that's all right. Agendas usually have a structure, an order with entrance, like a proposal and agreement, and later on the back of at last about various. And between, you have a lot of time to make your plan, what you are like to discuss. But I do not like the idea that somebody in this network is coming with ideas which are not discussed in the general, just in a small group, and then discuss it later in a group. other people like me with a letter were disqualified by making a letter without asking anybody, because also that is not right. I asked somebody for that, and I had some discussions in the small group, and I just would like to have this letter discussed later. But it's only a letter. It's not a steering group which is ruling this network. So I'm not. I do not agree with the steering group. That's the one. The other thing I would like to know, what is of the other members which are today around? Are there only 3 which are which agree with the steering group, and all the others? What of them I would, in Germany, when the Green Party was founded, it was common that there was speakers, one for pro and one contra. So now I just noticed have been speakers for pro steering group, and I'm the only one which is now speaking against steering group. There are no more in this meeting which agree or do not agree with the steering group. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. I hear your concerns. While in my 40 or years or more doing nonprofit work and working for peace, I've been involved in several things that would describe themselves as steering committee, none that fit the description that you had, because not wanting to be overrun by white supremacy or male supremacy, we made sure that we did not have somebody at the wheel and someone making decisions for the whole. I think it's possible to both address concerns and have a structure that works. I don't see us getting there today, but I think we can discuss what would it look like, what authorities would it have, wouldn't it have, all of those things. But I don't want to take the time to unpack that now. Christine, and then Leah. Go ahead, Christine.
I will not talk about the name. Name it steering group, naming like in the international network, international coordinating group, or something else. And of course, it has to be participatory. But for international coordination, and especially, it's not the first anti-NATO summit protest I organize on an international level. It's necessary to have groups which are able to make decisions, of course, after feedback from their real organization, to make decisions. Otherwise, we cannot prepare something, because we cannot set all the women against NATO from our call together with maybe, if you take the 400 member organization of the No to NATO network and discuss things. Therefore, you need other things. But for short reflection, you need always a working group or a coordinating group or preparation group. You can change it very often, but you need some for external, also external counterparts, 3 or 4 or 5, who can answer questions and can make in a common discussion decisions that, okay, maybe we can go ahead with these or with these proposals. And these would not be possible because you know a lot, or we know a lot from each other and what are our things. And I think only like we have done it for Brussels, we should see that we get it better. And at least there was also an informal group who did it and take the decisions and make something. Plus, but I think it's better to put this structure on an official level that everyone knows how it will work. And one other hint for the International Coordinating Committee of the No to NATO network, it was the first one always selected, and now we have adopted a lot of other persons who were very involved in preparation of the NATO summit. So it grew up, and now it's a little bit sometimes too big, because we only get from half of them now an answer. And okay, then the rest who answered takes the decisions. If the others not answering, that's their problem, not ours. Yeah, which one are working.
Great recommendations, Christine. Thank you.
A little bit more time to find a solution for this.
Yes, a little bit more time is needed at our next meeting. So we've heard concerns and recommendations. Fantastic. There's stuff in the chat. Nancy, I'm going to recognize you first because you haven't spoken much today. Nancy, then Leah, then Margaret. Try to keep yourself to 2 minutes each, please. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. I think a real requirement going forward is to consider that while the 75th anniversary is in Washington, D.C., and that's going to be a very important focus, that with our regional groups, it's important, I think, to build, to have discussion on how NATO, people in the NATO countries can organize to have actions, educational and nonviolent actions that lift up the role of NATO in those countries and in those regions to counteract what's going to be a huge presence of NATO and propaganda about NATO in DC, Washington, DC. So we might put that on the agenda for next meeting. That might even be a question about formation of a steering committee.
Thanks,
Thank
Nancy.
you.
And thanks for keeping it to 1 minute. So we've got Leah, Margaret, Tamara, Teresa, Claire. Now, we will not be done in 5 minutes. Just want you to know you're making the choice by putting your hands up to talk that we're going to go past 10:30. Because unless each of you takes 1 minute, which is highly unlikely, it won't happen. Leah.
Well,
Margaret,
George,
Tamara, Teresa,
on the issue
Claire.
of process, on the issue of process, George, you need to get agreement to go past 10:30 because 90 minutes is what we said was going to be the hard stop. So let's see if everybody's ready to go longer. I'm willing, but it's everybody else. Let's be democratic about how long these meetings can go, because as the hands continue to go up, you shouldn't be arbitrarily making that decision about our time, George. So can we say, yes, we're willing to go past 10:30 because 10:30 was the stop time.
Thank you. I'm sorry if my phrasing wasn't helpful. I was saying, if you choose to all speak, it's going to be longer. But is everybody cool with hanging out for another, hopefully not more than 10 minutes? All right. So I'm looking for hands up or thumbs up or nods, or something that is consent. Consent, please. Thank you very much for everyone who's expressed anything. So, Leah, Marguerite, Tamara, Teresa, Claire, ideally 2 minutes each. Go ahead, Leah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Christine, for your explanations. Margaret, you have said that we all three or actually we are four representing this, and I've been working 40 years for Women for Peace in Finland, and we are not organized. We are a flat group, a network, and we do not have any kind of working committees or steering. And I'm also quite skeptic for this, although I agree that for the upcoming Washington big event, it needs, and it really needs, a group, US and Canada, women who know what they want to do in Washington next year. Maybe it's good to have some kind of working groups for different issues that is going to come up. But I'm not for a steering committee.
Thank you. Margaret, Tamara, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you. I think we should get clear what for the steering group should work. If it is intended to prepare the meeting, I object. If it is to prepare an event, make an action, then it is necessary. And so there is no discussion for me about this event in next year, about 75 years NATO. But for me, is a discussion now. Do we need a steering group for meetings and to get involved in news and to make decisions? I think the meetings are the democratic basis for making decisions, not a steering group. Thank you.
Okay. Tamara, Teresa, Claire.
So a few things I'll go really quickly. Yes, I do think that the priority should be the planning for the 75th anniversary. It's in 10 months, so we've got lots of work to do. In Canada, we are using the global mobilization to end the war in Ukraine as kind of a kickoff for our year of action to the 75th anniversary. So in Canada, because September 30th is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we are calling October 1st to 8th as a week of action to end the war in Ukraine. Our theme, though, is peace now, stop the war, stop NATO. So I just wanted to share that all with you. And I know that I have been kind of assigned to be on the NATO climate, no to NATO climate list. I need to finish my PhD within the next year. So I'm not going to be as active with the group and not being able to come on to meetings over the next few months. But I am trying to use the 75th anniversary because I really want to go to Washington to protest, to try to get my PhD done before then. So I just want you all to know this, why I will be absent and kind of silent over the next few months, but that's the reason. But I am going to be participating in a protest this weekend, which is the weekend to end fossil fuels. And I have a big sign that says, NATO is a climate criminal, abolish the alliance. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. On logistics, I'm wondering if there's any way for some of us, I don't know how to get into my email account for Fem No to NATO, but if there's any way to change it to digest, if there's, because then we only get one message a day that compiles all of the message, and that would be a little bit easier on my inbox. I also want to just say that I hope that we can establish a Twitter account. I think it would be really important for us to be on Twitter. So I would be happy to help with setting that up and managing it a little bit. So yeah, and then the final thing is that the No to NATO, No to War, No to NATO network is going to try to have a webinar on NATO and climate. Thanks.
Wow, that's a lot. Thanks a lot, Tamara. Good luck with graduate school or PhD or whatever. Teresa and Claire.
Well, very quickly, the idea that we would plan our work and work out our plan was introduced at the last meeting. My work is around strategic planning primarily. I've been in the movement for 57 years. And what I have learned is that you don't get very far if you don't plan your work and work your plan. So the idea that there would be people coming together to help sort out the many wonderful ideas that keep popping up from Christine, from Tamara, from people with lots of organizing experience. Oh, we'll continue to do the work. How much we are able to achieve to take down NATO, we've got to have a plan. And that's what my point is. And just so you know, the president of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Sylvie of Cameroon, is organizing a No to NATO conversation system-wide in Wilf. All 52 sections will be invited to participate, and that will happen in October. So I hope to see Patricia there and people from Germany, Wilf, and others, but that is coming up. And so some of the work that I will do will be with Wilf. Some of it may be with Global Women for Peace. I know that I'm doing this work because I'm serious. NATO has to go. It's the recipe for endless war. It should have gone decades ago. So whatever happens with the decision about whether this is a flat network, whatever that means, or whether this is going to have a level of organization. Yes, Christine, I'm with you. And thank you for reminding me. No to NATO.org. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Claire.
Thank you very much. We are three here from the work group about Global South, Patricia, Ernest, and me. I think we have to take contact to work about this subject. But I have some news from Belgium. I am a member of the M25, and the M25 asked us to do a lot of things about peace in Ukraine next week, because we'll have the International Day for Peace. I discussed in the beginning with Ria, because she's from Vrede. It means peace in Dutch. And we have a lot of things. We have a meeting on 30 September in a room in Brussels. Sorry, about peace in Ukraine. And 83 communes in Belgium will put the, maybe I hope more than 83 for the moment. They will put the flag, the rainbow flag, to tell we are against the new nuclear bombs on the territory, and we want peace and peace in Ukraine. Everybody can put the rainbow flag home, of course, and at the window, and ask the commune. I'll do it immediately, to ask the commune to put the same flag. It's a little thing, but we are doing something. Thank you.
Thanks for that report, Claire. Well, we're 7 minutes past our end time, but I hope everything that needs to be said today has been said. If you feel, some burning in your belly that something needs to be said, Ria?
Yes, I just want to add that with the International Coalition to ban depleted uranium weapons, we are preparing an action appeal because of the news of the US sending depleted uranium weapons to Ukraine. So you will hear more about it when the appeal is ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Ria. Cluster bombs are bad enough, but depleted uranium. Patricia?
Yes, I want just to tell that we are trying to meet other people to organize well the group NATO climate killer. I explained all to Lisa, and we need to take time for well organize the people, to prepare the people that work normally at local level to work globally. So this is a process, but we are working. This is the first point. Another point is that another member of this group, that is Marilina Rakelbeck, you remember, is the other woman that speak with Ria about depleted uranium, is publishing now a book, important book about depleted uranium. And another important point, news, is that 22 person in Italy, that at the moment is not official, but I want to inform you, we are organizing one penal action against the responsible of the nuclear bases in the North Italy for the nuclear sharing. So we are starting this process with IALANA, the International Association of Lawyers Against Nuclear Arms, And this is important steps. Thank you.
It is. And thanks for that update. Sorry that we haven't been able to hear one from everyone. My proposal for the next meeting dates are either, looking at your calendars, please, October 12th or the 19th. So I'd like to hear the preference from people. Maybe write your preference in the chat, 12th or 19th. We can set our next meeting date. Okay. Other people respond in the chat, 12th or 19th.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, both are okay for most people. Ellen prefers the 12th. Does Pippa? Anyone cannot make the 12th? Raise your hand if you can't make the 12th. Patricia, can someone else from your group come on the 12th? Yes? Okay, so we'll miss you, but we'll have other people on the 12th. All right, the 12th of October is when we'll meet next. After today, probably tomorrow, you'll get the recording and the chat. Okay, thanks so much. Be well. Peace and blessings.
Thank you so much, George. You're
Thank
doing a grand
you.
job.
Bye-bye.